Okay, so basic types of sentences, and there's a reason I left the screen up, so I hope you can deal with the line down the middle. Okay, so does everybody remember some of these basic sentences, like X is Y? What am I talking about in Japanese?
The wa part.
The wa particle, right? So, for example, I am a student, you would say,
私は学生です。
はい、私は学生です。That is a pen. それはペンです。はい。That book is Mary's. その本はメリーさんのです。Yeah. And if you want to, you could say その本はメリーさんの本です。If that's less
Does
confusing.
Mary-san know this? Why is there a no?
You can drop that final hon because it's understood from the earlier part of the sentence, just like you can in English. That book is Mary's book sounds redundant, right? You can just say that book is Mary's.
Oh, okay, I see.
Okay, it's the same structure. Okay.
So it's just implied that the book
Right.
is there in that
Yeah.
part.
Okay. The restroom is here.
Koko, tore,
Toire or toire wa koko desu. That's the more usual structure.
tore
Yeah.
wa koko.
Toire wa koko desu. Right? This is Tommy's umbrella.
これはトミさんの傘です。
はい、これはトミーさんの傘です。Good? So everybody remembers those are all examples of X, Y, S, right?
You said koi wa Tomisu-san kasa desu.
これはトミーさんの
No.
傘
傘
で。
です
はい。Okay. Good so far? So I'm going to do this. Okay. Okay, so we talked about how you can change 私は学生です or just 学生です, right? You can do that. Does everybody remember why?
Because they probably asking a question about you to begin with.
Right, so if it's clearly understood, you can just skip that topic part, okay? Okay, person travels to destination. This is the kind of structure that we're working with now, right? This is one of our new structures. Person traveling to a place, right? So, for example, I go to school. How would you say that in Japanese?
Watashi wa gakko.
Oh, sorry. I forgot how to go back. So, let me-
Gakko de
okay, watashi wa,
goko ni.
hi.
How come
Okay,
it's
and
ni?
so now you see why okay, so, let's see, maybe I can just do this on the, okay, so I go to school, so you can do watashi wa, and then, gakko, right? And then what?
Ni.
Me, or,
Okay.
one or the other, right? Okay, is it gonna confuse people if I leave both of them there?
Well, A is for, or A is for set destinations, right? Places that don't move.
Yeah. Okay, so, 私は学校に
Ikimasu.
行きます, right?
Hi.
Right. Okay, good? Everybody okay so far?
Yeah.
What about, I will go to school? Same thing, yeah. 私は学校に行きま
I
す.
just have a question. Why is it ni and not de for the particle?
Okay, de is not a traveling to particle. It's a happening
It's an
at
action
particle.
one. Action.
It's at versus to. Okay? 学校で勉強します. I study at school. But there's no traveling involved with de. You can't go anywhere with de. You're just where you are doing something.
Okay.
Okay? Ni is indicating that you're actually moving to something. You're going to a place. So if you wanted to give them English equivalents, ni is more like to, T-O. De is more like in or at. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can,
So-
can day be used for on? Or,
De
I know we haven't really gotten that far yet.
depends. It depends. Let's not
Yeah.
mess with that one yet.
Okay.
Okay, I will go to school tomorrow.
明日、
はい。明日、
明日。
学校に行き
You can just use a comma, right?
はい。
Uh,
So you can say 明日学校に行きます. You can put the watashi wa in there, but you don't have to, right? I'm going to underline that as being something that's optional. Okay?
Would you
Hi.
like to say ashita wa or no?
明日は学校に行きます. That is creating a slightly different feeling to the sentence where ashita is the emphasis or the topic of the sentence. Somebody asks you, what are you going to do tomorrow? And you say, 明日は学校に行きます. Well, tomorrow I'm going to go to school. As opposed to, or in contrast to, other days when you normally don't go anywhere near the school. Okay? Do you see how that makes it a little different? It's not just I'll go to school tomorrow, it's I'll go to school tomorrow. You see the difference?
Emphasis on.
Big emphasis on tomorrow when you put the wa there. Okay? And that's one of those grammar points in the chapter that we'll talk again about. Okay? So, what about, oh, didn't mean to do that. Okay. So, I will not go to school on Saturday.
明日が、
Ashita is not in there.
On Saturday.
oh, 土曜日、
Right. Doyobi. And then what particle do you need with a definite time like
Ni.
doyobi? Ni. Thank you. So doyobi ni,
学校
gakko
に
ni.
行きません。
行きません。
There you go. Ikimasen. Notice I have to type the N twice to get that to change to a hiragana and not stay an English N. Okay. So, 土曜日に学校に行きません. Notice I'm not putting any spaces. Japanese doesn't naturally put spaces, but you would normally have this in kanji, and that in kanji, and that in kanji.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah.
Because I feel like you could get really mixed up if you were like reading really fast or something.
Mhm.
Yeah.
If you know kanji and the kanji are there, it gives you the visual breaks you need.
Yeah.
Okay? So I go to school every day.
毎日、
Hi. Mainichi.
カマ、
Mm-hmm.
学校、
Yeah, 学校
学校、
学校に
学校
行きます,
行
right?
きます。
Yeah, 毎日学校に行きます. Anyone wondering why there's no ni here? Ni doesn't go with what kinds of
It's a frequency, right?
frequency adverbs, like mainichi and tokidoki and itsumo. Okay, it also doesn't go with
Like tomorrow and today and stuff, right?
ashita
Yeah.
and anything that's an indefinite time, times that change relative to when you say them. Ashita, right now we say ashita, it means Tuesday, right? But if we say ashita on Tuesday, it'll mean Wednesday, right? Tomorrow. You get it? Okay? I couldn't tell if you were just stretching or if you were looking at me like you didn't understand.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay, so 毎日学校に行きます. So I do it every day. 毎日 does not take a particle. The other word that does not take the particle ni is the question word, itsu. Okay, itsu ikimasu ka? When do you go? No particle there. On the other hand, if you're asking what time, 何時に行きますか? Nanji takes ni because it's asking for a specific time, a clock time. Okay? The same thing with nanyobi, which day of the week. That's also asking for a specific answer, so it takes ni. Nanyobi ni ikimasu ka? What day of the week do you go on? Okay? Okay, I come to school.
私は学校に行きます。
There you go. So, 学校に instead of ikimasu. we change it from ikimasu to kimasu, right? Gakko ni ikimasu. What's the difference in meaning in English? Gakko ni ikimasu versus
Come is
gakko ni
like come is
ikimasu.
like come to me, and go is like
Right.
I'm going to you.
So when you're saying watashi wa gakko ni ikimasu, where are you located when you're saying this sentence, this one here?
At home.
At home or anywhere that's not
At school.
not at school, exactly. Okay?
What if
When
you're
you're saying
going-
gakko ni kimasu, where are you?
At school.
At the school. Okay? That's the difference. Make sense? Okay? So we're here at school now. We're talking about not coming to school on Sunday, right? So how would you say that?
Nichiyobi ni
Right? Nichi, yobi, ni.
gakko
Okay? Gakko ni
ni ikimasen.
kimasen. Kimasen. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so far so good? Everybody's kind of getting these structures? What about I come to school every day?
Mainichi
Oh, whoops, what did I just do? I had my cursor in the wrong place. Okay, so mainichi, right, every day.
comma gakko
Right,
ni kimasu.
right. Okay. いいですか? Everybody good so far? Did I lose anybody? Okay, so then these are all the structures that apply, okay, and these two. So these are all in this category. Person travels to destination, okay? All of these go in that category, and here's some more that go in that category. I changed up the verbs a tad. So I return home is,
Watashi wa
okay.
uchi
Uh,
de
Uchi
de ni
ni, there you go. Uchi ni
okaerimasu.
kaerimasu. Hai. Kaerimasu. Watashi wa uchi ni kaerimasu. And once again, watashi wa is optional. Uchi ni kaerimasu all by itself implies that I'm returning to my own house in the right context.
So you
Obviously, if you're watching your friend walk away and you ask somebody else, "Doku ni ikimasu ka?" and you point at that friend who's walking away, and they say, "Uchi ni kaerimasu," then they mean that person is going home, right? But if somebody asks you, "Hey, where are you going?" and you say, "Uchi ni kaerimasu," then it obviously means I'm going home.
Would you use uchi in both instances? Like, because I thought if you use uchi, it's like my place.
It usually does imply my place. If you're talking about someone else's house, you would often say ouchi. O is an honorific. So by putting o in front of uchi, you're saying honorable house. So he's returning to his honorable house.
But you wouldn't use ie.
You could use ie ni kaerimasu. Yeah. That part is partially personal preference and partially context, how well you know the person, things like that. Okay. Oh. Period in the right spot, thank you. Okay, I return home every day would be
Mainichi
mainichi,
Uchi.
uchi ni kaerimasu. Okay, I return home every day at 5 o'clock p.m.
Mainichi.
Mainichi, right? Mainichi.
Goji.
What's the p.m. first of all? Go, yeah.
Goji.
Go. Goji, yes, I know, it sounds awful. Go, goji. And since we're learning the kanji for goji this lesson, I'm going to go ahead and let those be in kanji. Okay, goji.
Uchi ni kaerimasu.
What's missing?
Every
Ni
day.
uchi ni.
Yeah, uchi ni uchi ni kaerimasu. Right? Okay. And I'm going to show you a nifty little trick you can do. So see, I just highlighted the kanji, which I got by hitting the space bar while it was still underlined with the little dotted lines, right? Now I go up here to, oh shoot, it doesn't have it in PowerPoint. If you do this in a Word doc, up here, approximately in this location in Word, there's a place where you can actually click on it and it'll give you the furigana. And you just tell it, yes, you want that, and it'll write goji in little itty bitty letters in hiragana right above the kanji. Nicely. And that way you don't have to mess with 8-point font and all that nonsense to try to do it for yourself. Okay, so, 毎日午後5時に家に帰ります。Okay. What about I will not return home tomorrow at 5:30 p.m.?
明日
Yep, 明日
午後
午後 Okay, 5時半 right? 5時半 I'm not doing that kanji because we haven't learned that one yet. Okay. 午後5時半 ni, because it's still a specific time, right? 5:30 is still specific. 午後5時半にうちに帰りません. So far so good? Making sense? Okay. How would you ask a question like when will you go?
いつ
はい、いつ
が No.
Does itsu need a particle? Nope. No particle whatsoever. Itsu ikimasu. Make it a question. Ka. Itsu ikimasu ka. I'm putting a question mark just because some people prefer that. It's not necessary when the question is clearly a question because it's got a ka on the end. Okay, some Japanese people would put a period there instead. Okay, what time will you go? How would you ask that one?
何時
Hi, nan ji
に
ni
行きます
ikimasu ka. And if you wanted to change that to say what time will you go home? What time will you return home? That would be nanji ni
帰ります
kaerimasu ka? Yep. And notice that you don't have to repeat the uchi ni every time either. If it's already understood that you're talking about yourself and going home, kaerimasu by itself as a verb implies that you're going home as opposed to any other place, right? You can't use kaerimasu for just anywhere. So you could say, 毎日午後5時に帰ります. And that is perfectly legitimate. You can leave out the uchi ni, and it still makes sense. 質問がありますか? Any questions? はい.
There's one example in the book for when you say like around 7, so
Hi.
Shichichi Goro, you
Hi.
don't need to use ni because around 7 is not a
Right,
specific
okay.
time.
Let me go ahead and put that one down here and add in the around. Around. Oh, forgot to switch back to English. Okay. At. There. Okay, so yes, I will not return home tomorrow at around 5:30. So, oh, I did that again. Okay, so how would you change that?
You have to go to
Okay, so ashita. Oh, sorry. Ashita what? Ashita gogo 5時半 goro. Sorry. mana. Here. Goro. Uchi ni kaerimasen. So there, some people might say the ni, because if you didn't have the goro there, it would need ni. Some people, because of the goro, choose to leave the ni out. That is optional. Where it's clearly not allowed to put a ni is words like ashita, anything that's relative time. Words like mainichi, anything that's, a frequency adverb. And the question word itsu. Those three categories never take ni. Specific times like doyobi and gojihan always take ni. And then approximate times that have goro, you can choose for yourselves. Okay?
What? Goro is at about, right?
Yeah, approximate, about, yeah.
Why is that? I don't understand why that's there in that sentence.
Around 5:30.
Oh,
Around and about
okay,
are
I see it now.
similar meanings, right?
I didn't see that.
Okay, so I can highlight that.
So the Goro
and-
comes after the time.
Yeah, Goro comes after the time. I'm bolding it on both the English and the Japanese, so it's a little easier to see the comparison there. Does that help?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I'm going to post this, so if you don't have time to take complete notes, don't worry about it, because this is going to be on YouTube. Okay, so next slide. So does everybody feel like they have a pretty good handle now on how you talk about a person traveling to a destination? Okay, now the other main grammar structure they're teaching in this lesson is person doing something at a place, right? So things like I eat,
Tabemasu.
hai, tabemasu. I eat sushi, sushi o tabemasu. Okay, so what I want to do is stick a new slide in here, and we're going to do the same thing. Okay, so I eat. You can say watashi wa tabemasu, but you don't have to. You could just say
Tabemasu.
tabemasu. Okay, so we're going to do it the short way for now. I eat sushi would be
Sushi o tabemasu.
sushi o
Tabemasu.
tabemasu. Okay, notice which o is it? The particle o, right? That's very important. Notice also that it's possible to say o sushi o tabemasu. This o is that honorific that I mentioned before. You can use o uchi to talk about someone else's house. You can say o sushi just to be more polite. It's not necessarily being polite to the sushi that you're about to eat. It's being polite to the person you're speaking with. Hi.
You would say that though, talking about your own sushi?
Yeah, I mean, o sushi o tabemasu, this is more of a general sort of politeness. In polite conversation, certain nouns frequently take o. And it doesn't mean that you're honoring yourself if you're the one who's going to eat it. It's more that you're being formal with the person you're speaking with by putting that honorifical on certain nouns. Omizu, o sushi, okane, ocha. There are a variety of them that take o pretty commonly. There are some that don't take o that easily. And then you'll hear it, like I said, sometimes in polite conversation. You'll also hear it with moms talking to little kids. They'll teach their children to use the o honorific prefix a lot because little kids tend to use casual speech. And so by at least putting the o in there, by copying mommy, they're sounding a little bit more polite to their elders when they speak. Okay, so I drink is
Nomimasu.
hai, nomimasu. And then I drink water.
Mizu o nomimasu.
Mizu o nomimasu. Right? What about I play tennis, which in Japanese
Tennis.
the idiom is I do tennis.
Tenisu.
Hai, tennisu.
します
Yeah.
Wo shimasu, right? Notice that it's not asobimasu. Later on we'll learn the verb asobimasu, which is to play, but it doesn't mean to play sports. It means play in the sense of do something fun with other people, or do something fun alone, like playing video games on your own or something, but it's just the verb to do something fun, basically. Okay, I often listen to music. Okay, now we're getting to adding frequency adverbs. How would you do?
よく
Hai, yoku,
音楽
ongaku,
を
right? To listen,
Kikimasu.
hai, kikimasu. There you go. Ongaku wo kikimasu is to listen to music. Yoku ongaku wo kikimasu. I often listen to music. Ii desu ka? Does everyone see how that usually fits in that spot? Hai.
Where's the frequency adverb usually put?
That's the very commonly it'll go right there.
Where is that?
Yoku ongaku wo kikimasu. It is possible to put it there instead. Ongaku wo yoku kikimasu.
If you like put a specific time, like shichiji, yoku, would you just put yoku before that?
Ah, okay. So let's say, so I often listen to music at 7. You want to do that? 7 a.m. Oh, sorry, I keep forgetting to switch to English. At 7 a.m. Okay. Is that better? It's not perfect, but it's better, right? Okay, so yoku. Okay, you can do either yoku, shi, ji, ni. Oh, and I said AM, right? So that would be gozen. Yoku gozen shichiji ni ongaku o kikimasu. Or gozen shichiji ni yoku ongaku o kikimasu. The emphasis changes slightly depending on whether you put the yoku here or whether you move it to here. Notice that either way it's not taking the ni, right? Gozen shichiji ni yoku ongaku o kikimasu. You're saying that listening to music is something that you often do at 7 in the morning, right? Yoku gozen shichiji ni ongaku o kikimasu. I often listen to music at 7 in the morning. They're almost the same. One maybe is putting a little bit more emphasis on the time that you usually do it, and the other is putting a little bit more emphasis on the fact that you often do it at that time. But that's a very minor difference, right? So either one is fine. And if you really wanted to, gozen shichiji ni ongaku o yoku kikimasu, that is also possible. Okay, so that's what they were talking about when they were saying that the word order in Japanese is fairly flexible. However, if it makes it easier to just think of frequency adverbs as being somewhat like time words and therefore commonly put at the beginning of the sentence, you can think of it that way for now if you're going to be confused otherwise. Okay? So I'm going to leave it here, yoku gozen shichiji ni ongaku o kikimasu, because that's a perfectly good sentence that way. The other ones aren't wrong. Okay? If you really want to, you can do it in any of those 3 places. Do you want me to put a little asterisk in the other spots that it's possible for it to go? No,
If
just
we
one.
were using like watashi wa, would it go before all of that?
Most of the time. Watashi wa yoku gozen shichiji ni ongaku o kikimasu. Yeah. Usually, if there is going to be a watashi wa, it would be in front of everything else. Normally. Okay? There are always other possibilities, though. Okay? I speak a little Japanese.
ちょっと
はい。はい。ちょっと、
日本語
日本語
を話します。
話します。 sorry. Masu. Okay, and again, Nihongo o chotto hanashimasu is also possible.
So like the only other option is it would come after O.
Yeah, so it cannot separate the noun from its particle, okay? But if you consider the noun plus particle as a unit, it can go either before or after any given unit. Does that make sense? So you can't take it away, you can't take the O away from Nihongo, because then it sounds like Nihongo is not the thing being spoken. If you put some other thing in between Nihongo and O, then it makes it look like whatever other thing you inserted here is what's being spoken, which could be really confusing. Does that make sense? Okay. And then I sometimes read a magazine would be
Tokidoki.
Hai, Toki, Zashi,
O.
O,
Yomimasu.
はい、読みます。はい、時々雑誌を読みます。Same deal. 雑誌を時々読みます is also possible. Okay, so once again, do you want me to put one over here so that you know that that's the other option? Okay, so 雑誌を時々読みます is also possible. Make sense? Is that going to confuse people if I leave one of them in a different position? You're okay? Okay. Any questions about those? Okay, so we've got a few others that we can practice real quick. Okay. Okay, so I get up is just
O.
okimasu, right? Okay, to get up, or I get up at 6 a.m. would be,
Rokuji ni.
what about the a.m. part? Yeah.
Gozen.
Gozen,
Rokuji ni.
right? Rokuji ni
Okimasu.
okimasu. Okay, what about I sleep at 10 p.m.?
Gogo.
Right? Gogo.
12
Ju what?
ni.
Ju. Ji. Juji.
That's 10 is Jiji.
Juji. Did you see what just happened
Thank
there?
you.
There were so many homophones for Juji. I had to choose the right one. Okay, so gogo Juji
Ni.
ni
Nemasu.
nemasu, right. Okay, gogo Juji ni nemasu. Yes? Okay. I watch TV every night.
Maiban.
Hai, maiban. Terebi. Oh. Sorry. I'll change that back. That's what happens if you don't hit return and then you hit spacebar. Changes everything to whatever it needs to change to. So, maiban terebi o mimasu. Oh, sorry. Typo. Right. Okay, so maiban terebi o mimasu. I study Japanese at 3 p.m. on Saturdays at the library. Now we're getting a little bit more complicated. Where do you want to start? Okay, doyobi. This time is always a good place to start. So, doyobi.
Ni.
Do we want a ni here?
No.
And why not? Because we have two different time phrases, right? One is a day of the week and the other is the time within that day, right? So because one is more general, the other is within that, one is actually possessing the other.
So
You're actually going to do doyobi
No.
no
Go.
gogo. Gogo, what? Sanji. That's another one with a zillion homophones. Gogo sanji ni,
도서관데.
to,
図書館
to, sho, kan, de,
勉強します。
hai, benkyou shimasu.
일본어
Oh, yeah, benkyou shimasu is jumping the gun just a little bit, so we'll go back. Benkyou shimasu is good, but we have to put nihongo o benkyou shimasu. Okay, so let's look at this. Doyobi no gogo 3時に図書館で日本語を勉強します. So there's that de that we were talking about before. Remember? Why do we need de there instead of ni?
Because it's an activity that
It's
he's
an
doing.
activity happening in the Tosokan, not traveling to the Tosokan. Right? Do you see that contrast?
Mhm.
Do you see how those are different from one another? That's a very important distinction to understand. Okay. Oops. I keep doing that. Okay. So a couple more simpler, shorter ones. I rarely watch TV. Good. Amari. Amari. Terebi. Wo. And then what form of the verb do we need with amari?
見ません
Mimasen. There you go. Okay. Amari terebi o mimasen. And I never watch TV. Similar pattern. Zen. Zen. Terebi o mimasen. Hey.
You wouldn't put the zen and the other one before the verb?
You can. This is, again, these are like frequency adverbs again, right? They just happen to be negative ones.
Yeah.
But terebi zen zen mimasen also works. And it puts a little bit of a stronger emphasis on the never. I never watch TV. As opposed to zen zen terebi mimasen, which sounds more like I never watch TV. So in English, we do that emphasis with our voices. In Japanese, they do it with proximity to the verb. The closer you put something to the verb, the more emphasis or importance you're giving it. Just remember that it can never separate something from its particle. So, for example, with this long one, 土曜日の午後3時に図書館で日本語を勉強します. If you wanted to, you could say 日本語を図書館で勉強します. You can swap those around, but you cannot swap the particles separate from the nouns. Okay? Otherwise, you could end up with something like 日本語で図書館を勉強します. I study the library at Japanese language. Crazy. Right? So you have to be careful that your particles stay with the relevant vocabulary that they belong with. Okay? Which means you have to keep track of the functions of the particles and which nouns need those functions, right? Nihongo needs the function of being the object that is being studied, 勉強します, right? Toshokan is the location, the place where the studying is going to happen. Make sense? So therefore, Toshokan needs de, not o. You're not going to study the library. You're going to study in the library. Big difference, right? Same thing with, like, if we went back to I eat sushi. Let's say you wanted to say that you're going to eat sushi at the restaurant. Restaurant de sushi o tabemasu, right? Going to eat sushi at the restaurant. If you swap those particles by mistake, you would end up saying that you were going to eat the restaurant at sushi. Not what you want to do, right? Okay, so does that make sense to everybody? We good? Okay, so we've got all these structures that apply to The person does something at a place. And sometimes we also have a time mentioned, right? Notice that times and places are both optional content, right? You can just say, okimasu, I'll get up. You don't have to say when or where if you don't want to. If you want to, you can add those, right? Uchi de 6時半に起きます. At home, I wake up at 6:30. You can do that, right? You can leave out either of those elements. You can say just uchi de 起きます. I'll wake up at home. Or 6時半に起きます. I'll wake up at 6:30. Right? You can say one or both of those. Same thing with any of these others. 土曜日の午後3時に日本語を図書館で勉強します. If you wanted to leave out what you're going to study, you could just say 土曜日の午後3時に図書館で勉強します. I'm going to study at 3:30 or 3 o'clock in the library. You don't have to say on Saturday. You don't have to say what it is you're planning to study there. Right? You can leave that piece out. If you want to say that you're going to study Japanese, but not where, you can leave out toshokande. Right? If you want to say that you're going to study Japanese at the library, but not which day you're going to do it on, you could leave out doyobi no. Right? Make sense? Now, what if you wanted to say that you're going to do it on Saturday, but not what time you were going to do it? Instead of doyobi no, what would you need?
土曜日に
Doyobi ni. Okay? So that's the one exception to my just leave a part out without changing anything else rule. Right? That's the one place where that rule doesn't work.
the
But
days of the week.
just for when you're giving two time phrases in the same sentence and one is encompassing the other such that no is needed. Okay?
Yeah,
If
because it's
you-
that
if-
time of Saturday.
Yeah, that time on Saturday, that time of Saturday, right. Okay, so if you've got a day of the week plus a time within that day, that's when you've got the no connecting the two time phrases. Some people will also just do a comma there. That's possible too, instead of no. Okay? Does everybody feel like they have a pretty good handle on the grammar? Were there other questions about grammar before we pass out the quiz? The masenka, yes, okay. Invitations. So in English, you might say something, if you're being extremely polite, won't you please have lunch with me? Right? That is close to the masenka structure. Okay, it's a negative question, right? Tabemasen ka? What am I asking? Won't you eat? Right? So the please and with me are implied. They're not explicitly stated in the Japanese version, but that's what they're doing. Okay? Tabemasen ka? Okay. If you wanted to do won't you play tennis with me? There you go. Tennis wo shimasen ka? Make sense? I can type those in if you guys want. So, and okay, tennis wo shimasen ka? Now, when you're answering those, if you want to answer with a yes to either of those or any other example of a masenka invitation, what's a good way to say, sounds good, yes, I'd like to? いいですね. Okay, いいですね, and this is often done with a comma here. いいですね. Sounds good.
It almost sounds like, yeah, okay. or
Yeah,
something,
that's very close, right? いいですね. Yeah, that sounds good. Let's do it. Yeah. Okay, later we'll learn other structures that can go with that, but I don't want to teach you more grammar than what's in this lesson. If you don't want to do it, you do not have to state a reason. in Japanese. Okay? If you just plain aren't interested in tennis, no matter what, you could say, テニスはちょっと dot dot dot. You don't have to say anything else. テニスはちょっと. And that implies that tennis is something you're not particularly interested in doing without you having to come out and say something that might come across as rude, like, oh, I hate tennis. Americans aren't too shy about saying, oh, I hate tennis, I don't want to play that. But Japanese people don't want to offend anybody, so they usually won't say it explicitly. They'll just say, テニスはちょっと. If you want to be even more polite, you can be less specific. Okay? Instead of テニスはちょっと, you can say, それはちょっと. Okay? それはちょっと. And that's just, that is a little bit, dot, 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 dot. You're still not saying what it is. You're not saying whether it sounds boring to you, whether it sounds like it's going to be too hot, whether it sounds inconvenient. You don't have to specify.
So you'd be
それは
like,
ちょっ
chotto.
と. ちょっと. Yeah,
Like,
even just ちょっと by itself is,
I don't know about that.
yeah, ちょっと by itself is sometimes possible. That's not quite as polite. それはちょっと. Because it's so non-specific, that in itself makes it polite.
Will someone ever ask you to specify, like,
Usually
after
not.
that? Okay.
If
That'd
you-
be a little weird.
Yeah, well, if you want to let them know that it's not them,
Yeah.
you can give a little bit more specific, like テニスはちょっと. Or let's say they invited you for Saturday, and you'd love to play tennis with them, but Saturday just won't work with your schedule. 土曜日はちょっと. Then they know that it's just 土曜日 that's the problem, not テニス. Okay?
Or not watashi.
Yeah, and not the person, right. Yeah, you don't hate their guts, you just can't do it on Saturday, right? So if you want to leave the door open for later invitations, you can specify what's wrong with that plan for you, but without having to say why it's a bad thing. Okay, 土曜日はちょっと is just, Saturday is not so great. But it's not telling whether it's because you've got other plans, you've already got a date with some other guy, you know, it doesn't have to be specific. Just, you know, Saturday won't work. But you're leaving the door open for them to invite you for something else. Okay? And you can also at that point make a suggestion. Like, 日曜日はいいですよ. Sunday's good. Or 日曜日はどうですか? How about Sunday? You know, you can suggest another time frame if you really do want to do the activity with that person. Also, if you don't want to do tennis with them, but you'd rather do something else, you could go with like, 映画はどうですか? How about a movie? You can suggest something different that you would like to do if you don't like tennis, but you like that person and you don't want to scare them away by refusing all their invites. Okay? Make sense? Okay. So I think that's about it. Oh yeah, the how about X, how about Y. So we sort of an addendum to this. This is just part of the sentence, right? Another example of just part of the sentence. You, instead of asking お名前は何ですか? Has anybody ever heard just お名前は? お名前は? You don't have to add the 何ですか because it's understood. And the o makes it honorific, it's already polite, so you don't have to make it extra long. This is one of the few examples where a shorter sentence is still politer than a longer one. What about dinner? You could say like, 晩ご飯は? To ask, you know, what about dinner in the sense of, are you planning to have dinner? If it's a really close friend, it could be like, how about having dinner with me? 晩ご飯は? Much more casual than 晩ご飯を食べませんか? 食べませんか is really being polite formal with the person. Bangohan wa is like you're hanging out with your best friend and you're getting hungry. And you're like, Bangohan wa? What about dinner? What should we do? And you've invited this person over to your house a zillion times. They've had you over to their house a zillion times. You're not worried about whose turn it is to host. You know, that's super, super casual in that context. Okay. Questions about those? Okay. Do you feel like I covered all the grammar points?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions about any grammar for this lesson?
Just about the honorable thing. What is the word honorable?
Honorable, it's, Japanese has a lot of honorific terms, extra polite kind of stuff.
It's just the onaga?
The O in onamae. Namae
oh,
by
namae,
its,
yes, name.
yeah. Namae is name, O is honorable. You know, just like the O in osushi, omizu, like that. Okay?
Is that asking for your first name or your last name?
In a formal situation like that, they're probably asking for either last name or all of it. So, you know, if you ask a Japanese person, onamae wa, they're likely to give you Tanaka desu, or Tanaka Hitoshi desu, you know, something like that. Okay? Okay. I'm going to turn this off so we can do the quiz. Okay. So this was not exactly how I'd planned for this class to go, but hey, if it helped everybody, then it was a good
It was
use
an
of our time.
investment.